is me, Steve. Yesterday, Sarah and I went hiking at Devil's Lake State Park in Wisconsin. Here's the location and everything. This is not just going to be me talking at you video. There will be actual field footage of the trip around the lake, and I will be telling you about the geology of the park as we go along our traverse. I am going to try to keep this intro short. What you're seeing here is a geologic map and location area of Devil's Lake. I did this map back in 2013, so this is my own work. Anything here will be cited within the video. I'm not going to put it at the end of the credits or anything. So the actual Devil's Lake itself, the part we walked around, what this is showing you here is the lake. Zoom in, and I'm going to come back to this map, but I want to show you the cross section overlaid on top of the actual map. This is A to A prime, exaggerated 5 times like it says on the diagram. Here is A to A prime with no vertical exaggeration, and B to B prime tossed to the other side of it with no vertical exaggeration. So you can get a feel of the units within the ground. Now the Baraboo syncline itself, the stratigraphy, that's what you're seeing here. The stratigraphy this is not an accurate representation of the syncline, but it's a good representation of the stratigraphy and how it's represented over the area of Baraboo. You can see the units here below it. This is also on that map. I will link to the map below. I'm not going to put it in here. Here is the generic stratigraphy and actual field relationships blown up for you. The relationships are kind of complicated. I could have done a strat column for you, but it would have oversimplified it way too much. So I decided to actually do this, but this is actually in that publication as well. So what you're seeing here is the general map done by Dot in 1970 of the Baraboo area. Okay, and what I'm going to show you here is I'm overlapping. Here's Devil's Lake area. This is basically what you're going to see us walk around. And the entire trip is just a hair under 4.5 miles, taking topography into account. Without topography, map distance was less. Here, what you see here is this purple section. This purple section is the Baraboo Formation. I'm simplifying this, oversimplifying this. I'm taking what's on the map and oversimplifying some of the structures. And in the middle there's that reddish color, and that's the younger metasediments. The Baraboo Formation, as you're going to see, is extremely thick, but there were other Precambrian sediments on top of it. And this red line with the arrows is showing the axis of the syncline. It's not really a plunging syncline. It's a closed syncline, but it's kind of spoon-shaped, as you can tell from this. It's not your ideal picturesque syncline. Well, here is A to A prime, as you can see, so that's that on the map. And this is a very generic cross-section, as if you took a slice through A to A prime and flipped it up. And you can see the scale there. That is to scale. There's no vertical exaggeration. The horizontal scale is the same as the vertical here. I just needed to blow it up for you. You can see the 3 miles and the 5 kilometers. And as you can see, the Baraboo Quartzite, it's the purple part here, is over a mile thick. Okay, probably closer to 2 kilometers. So this is a thick unit. In the video too, you're going to see me talk about some things that you're not going to readily know what I'm talking about. So I'm preparing you here for this gray area here. This is the Quaternary glacial end moraine. This gray thing is as far as the glaciers got. You're going to hear me talk about the driftless area in a second, but what you see here, the arrows are pointing the glaciated versus the unglaciated or driftless area. The arrows show the way the glaciers came, and they stopped right at that gray thing. That's the end moraine, and they didn't proceed any further. That's not to say there aren't glacial deposits in the driftless area, but they would be loess and outwash deposits. The actual glaciers themselves did not go over there into the driftless area. They stayed out of it. Okay, so here's a basic map, and I just like this map because it's old. There's the publication on the right. This is a driftless area. I'm going to mention it in the video. You can see the blue line is the Mississippi River. The black dashed lines are state boundaries. You can see Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois, and then the driftless section is the orange area. Glaciers, as far as we know, never entered that area. They went all the way around it, but they never entered it. But anyway, let's get started with the actual field part of this video. Okay, so it is March 24, 2019, and Sarah and I are in the Baraboo, Wisconsin area. We're going to do some hiking on Devil's Lake, but the water levels here are real high, the Wisconsin River and stuff. We're just driving in right now. We're going to try to do the whole rim around Devil's Lake. I did a geologic map of this place years ago. This little cemetery there. But we're just on 33 heading west right now. And if I can see the Wisconsin River again, I'll try to show it. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it this high out here. And what you see here, you can see how the purple, look on the shoulder, that's the local gravel. The Baraboo Quartzite's that purple color. Yeah, they're finally doing some of that weird, creepy place. Park headquarters, all the rock they got down and the rock that makes up the walls. It's all Baraboo quartzite. In here you can see things like laminations and stuff. The iron in it makes it its purple color, but it makes up less than 2% of the rock, usually less than 1%. I'm waiting for Sarah to get out of the bathroom. I'm still sitting in front of the park headquarters, but this is Truckzilla's very first trip to Devil's Lake. I've been here probably dozens of times. I don't know, over the years since the 1990s, since, geology classes, because every geologist in the Midwest is going to eventually come to the Baraboo area. A lot of stuff was figured out here in this area. People don't think of Wisconsin this way, like Van Hise and other big geology names. I mean, University of Wisconsin has an entire hall named after the guy. I think he was university president for a while. But a lot of there's a rock here. This is in Rock Springs called Van Hise Rock. It's one of the few natural monuments actually named after an individual, at least out here. And it's really interesting because how we figured out how mountains form and the structural predictions we make when we're doing geology weren't figured out in Alaska or China or the Rockies or out east or in Europe. They were figured out here in this area, Baraboo, Wisconsin. This right here, I'm going to put my finger on. That's a contact. We're going to walk around the corner and I'll get a location. That's why the cave is here. Cave's in the Baraboo. That's Cambrian. You can see big, huge boulders of Baraboo Quartzite in the Cambrian sandstones. And that's pretty much all sandstone with very little pebbles in it. And I'm going to explain that in more detail here in a minute. The sandstone, you can tell, is totally different than from the quartzite. It rounds so much easier, it weathers so much easier. Pits get weathered out, the people dig it out. And there's the sandstone with conglomerate right there. Unlike the Baraboo quartzite, which forms pretty much angular blocks. This is it. Here's some beautiful ripples up here on the quartzite. And you can see across the lake there, Devil's Lake. You can see crossbeds and then level bedding in the quartzite here. And you can see kind of dips this way, which is north, which is that way. This way is about west. Devil's Lake here is very interesting for a couple reasons. It has no outlet river or creek. Any water that flows into it stays into it. And there was a nitrogen problem in the 90s when people had more cabins and stuff down here, and they cleaned it up really well. So it's a lot better now than it used to be. But what we think is that end moraine I was talking about, see that that's the southeast, it's just to the other side of that. So the glaciers came like this way and stopped. So this may have been an original meander to the Wisconsin River. Geologists will argue about whether it is or isn't, but you know, I think it personally it is. It fits. I think this is just color banding. This isn't bedding. You gotta be careful. Look at that, curves like that. I mean, it's a metamorphic rock, but it's not that metamorphose. It's just color banding from when it was a sandstone. Isn't that nice? All right, now we can go to it's a chunk in the Cambrian. Here's the contact right here. It's right here. Here's standing on the Baraboo. Now my foot's on the Cambrian. And that's just a big, huge boulder in the Cambrian. You can see the pebbles here. Okay, here we are. This is the one detailed spot I'm going to show and talk about. Sarah's holding the camera. I'm trying to get an actual GPS from the GPS receiver here. But you ever want to put your hand on 1.1 billion with a B years of missing time? Right here. This boulder here is obviously Baraboo Quartzite, but this is in the Cambrian, the overlying Cambrian conglomerate that's at the base before you get into the sandstone. This right here is the actual top of the Baraboo Quartzite. This is the unconformity plane right here. And here, as you can see, according to my hand, I did a quick strike and dip. It's not 100% accurate, but it's close to north 75 west, 13 northeast. The beds are dipping that way. That way's about north. But as you can see here, the Baraboo Quartzite is typical quartzite. And then you can see even in here, you can see the sandstone, the little tiny clasts in the sandstone. And then you can see the rounded cobbles and above my head. So that's the conglomerate, okay? The Baraboo Quartzite itself was deposited around 1.6 billion with a B years ago. Then as plate tectonics started moving things around, it became buried. It became deformed in an orogeny. That's how we got the syncline shape of the Baraboo overall syncline shape. And this is our syncline. It's actually more like this. We're on this part. So we had an orogeny, deform all this stuff. Then about early middle Cambrian, about 500 million years ago, somewhere in there, give or take a few million. This was all dry land, okay? Just like it is now. Except the seas started, the Sauk seas started coming in from the south, transgressing. The Baraboo Islands that you see all around here and all this, these stood as islands in those Cambrian seas. And as the sea level rose and rose, well, you would get waves hitting these quartzite cliffs, busting off big, huge chunks. And we know we're near the edge of one of those cliffs right here because this is one class. This thing's huge. And most of the stuff in here is angular and large. There's some smaller stuff that was transported. But right here, this would have been at one point, not only 1.1 billion years of missing time, give or take, but we would have been standing on a sea bottom right here. Okay, we're higher in elevation now, but back in the Cambrian, that was the situation, and then the seas transgressed more and more, and eventually the entire Baraboo Hills were buried, and up through the Ordovician, possibly the Silurian, which is likely. There's no Ordovician and Silurian rocks right here, but they are close by. And then probably at the end of the Silurian, it started to dry out again. So that is just, I just think it's just amazing, because you can actually put your hand on 1.1 billion years of missing time. 1.6 from deposition. 1.6 billion years, and about 500 million years for the Cambrian up here. So you have your Proterozoic and then your Phanerozoic rocks here. I love how the color is here. I mean, it's just weathering. You see the orange iron, limonite. It's probably limonite. Oh yeah, when that comes down. Sarah did notice this too. You can see today's weathering. Big quartzite boulder rolled out there. Who knows where it is? It's probably down in the Tailless piles. The Tailless formed differently, and we're not exactly sure how that formed either, but we have a pretty good idea. But that's talked later. See, you can see the unconformity. Like I said, that is a clast. So the unconformity comes down under, and then this is quartzite again. So it comes back up, filling fractures and stuff like that. Here's your unconformity, erosional and angular. It's real quick. Remember I was just talking about joints and fractures. There's a lot of them here. They're just not very well developed. As time goes on, frost wedging and stuff will cause the joints and the fractures to fail. Stuff rolls downhill. You get Tailless piles. They surround the inside of the lake on all sides. But yeah, there's some good fractures and joints here. Like they're here now. They were here in the Cambrian. And if there was a big gap between them, like there is here, it would have filled with boulders, cobbles, and sand as the seas transgressed upwards. That way's about roughly north, slightly northwest. That's a big, wide, open fracture that if this was the Cambrian would be filled with gravel and sand. There's no Cambrian preserved right here except in things like these little fractures. We are still on the East Bluff Trail. We are heading south. So we are going up dip. Okay, we are going to go down the rough way. Ripple marks, they are everywhere along the bedding plains of the quartzite, because like I said, this was deposited shallow marine, possibly parts fluvial stream deposits, so you get some really diverse ripple marks all over the place throughout the Baraboo quartzite. And some are smaller like that and asymmetrical, some are larger asymmetrical. You also do get symmetrical ones in this, but actually the best place to look at them is to keep your eye out on the trail, not when they're in place, because those are hard to find when they're out of place. And sometimes you get really bizarre ones like this that don't really fit any consistent single pattern. They're here too. They're just multi-directional, so you get this kind of zigzagging pattern as opposed to nice even ones like that one right there. Just for real quick scale, that's the south shore right there. We'll be actually walking around that way, but just so you can see real quick, the buildings and the cars for scale. Here's some crossbeds right here. You can see you got to be careful, make sure something's not color banding, but these are definitely crossbeds. One way to tell in Baraboo quartzite is there are some coarse sand to granular facies in here, and you just got to look for the coarser grains and see if they actually line up with what you think is bedding, and here they do. So this is actually bedding in this case, well, cross bedding actually. Let's see if there's some more over here. And then here you see similar stuff here, and I like this area because you have a mixture of coarse and medium grain. Most of the quartzite, I mean, it's been metamorphosed to zeolite, lower green schist facies, so low grade metamorphism, and there is some crystalline, and the vast majority of it is medium crystalline, but you do get some granular parts, and you can use that to orient your beds. So you know this is bedding, this is cross bedding. This would be an actual bedding plane right here, and your cross beds are these things. You got to try to picture this as a sandstone instead of a quartzite, because that's what it was. And you see it continues down here all the way around here. And right now we're going to balance rock. I think this is what we used to call Fat Man Squeeze right here. This tree has been cut, but you know, you have to be in between here and here to get through. But the tree was recently cut within the past year or so, and they said we weren't here last year. So, I guess Fat Man Squeeze is gone. I think that's it.
You just passed Balance Rock.
Well, we're going to see it. Now it's view time. You kind of see Balance Rock right here. It's actually on the trail. We'll go that way in a minute. But, yeah. Still a ways down. There's the train tracks. That's Balance Rock, roughly southeast-ish. And what you can see from here is, remember I talked about how the glaciers came here and stopped? You can see it. That is east-ish, about that way. That's where the end moraine is. So the glaciers came this way towards the west and stopped right about here. Probably blocked the old channel to the Wisconsin River. And that's how Devil's Lake came to be. The lake at its deepest, I think, is around 50 feet, maybe 40. But on average, it's a lot less than that. Okay. What you see here is you see bed sets. Here, you can see the bedding. But you see cross bedding. You see bed set, bed, cross laminations actually within. This was probably fluvial right here. And then over here, you have Balance Rock, which I thought would have fallen 20 years ago, and it's still here. It has crossbeds in it too. And that is a bedding plane that it's sitting on. And you know that because you can see the ripple marks here. This stuff is in place. The ripple marks there. Some beautiful fractures running straight up. Main set. You got basically two sets of fractures here, in east and west, and north south. And I think some of them are even filled with sandstone from the Cambrian. But yeah, see, here's some people climbing. As promised, behind me is a Tailless Field, a big, huge Tailless Field. And we've come down from the cliffs. We are descending down to lake level right now. And you can see the size of some of these boulders are the size of cars, and some even larger than that. And what happens, how do these form? Well, this is how we think they form. We think they're Quaternary, so past 2.5 million years or so, this stuff is formed. Like I pointed out to you, so we're trying to tie some stuff in together here. Fractures and joints and cleavages, frost wedging, water gets in there. It's very cold here. And this area was glaciated. Water gets in there, freezes, ice expands, pops something big off. You know, in the joints, fractures, and cleavage planes. And it rolls downhill and forms these things. There used to be cabins down here a long time ago, and people would wake up and their living room would be gone because something the size of a large pickup truck rolled through their living room. These are stable-ish, if you will. I have climbed on these before. We're not doing that today because there's still too much ice, but just to show you the scale of how large some of these things are. I mean, some are no bigger, or like this big, but I mean, literally. Can you zoom in a little bit just to show just how big some of these things are? Well, we're getting near the bottom, and this is probably the best shot of the Tailless directly from the cliffs. It would have been derived from the faces. That's where people are climbing and rappelling from. And you can still see the fractures and joints and the frost wedging, which just caused it to come tumbling down. Okay, this rock is not in place. It's part of the Tailless, but it shows something that's hard to see in outcrop. First, I need to show you, we can tell bedding is in this. Bedding goes this way because we have coarse grains. We can see it and they're aligned this way. So this is bedding, all right? So this would be a fracture or joint face. But what's interesting about this is you see these, I mean, taking measurements on them isn't gonna matter because this thing is from way up there, you know, a few hundred feet, 100 meters or so. You see these lines, these slicken sides, and this white color, this is actually quartz. This would have formed during metamorphism. These linear features, as this rock became deformed, you'd have some bedding planes that would move against one another or move laterally a little bit, and you would get these slicken sides. Now these would be lateral forming because, like I said, this is bedding, so up or down from the bed would be either or, we don't know. But the striations aren't going this way, they're going this way. So they are parallel to the bedding. So this would have been lateral tectonic movement that formed these. And we are almost down to the bottom. Now, even though iron is only 2% or less of the rock, sometimes you'll get hematite forming along fractures and stuff. The iron will leach out and the rock will actually lose its purple color, and then the hematite will become concentrated on joints. And this is some nice coarse grains here. I just thought that was cool, so I'll show you that. What else do we have here? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Stick up very much.
No, it's not an elaborate mound, but Native Americans did build some little mounds over here. This is the original plaque over here. That one's newer. They don't mow or cut where the mound is. So this one was a bird. There's some other ones. They're nothing massive or anything, but they're pronounced enough. "5 years ago, this tree, I'm looking south, was fully alive, but looks like it's finally dead now. It sucks because it's like the coolest looking tree in the park. Oh well. Yeah, should be facing like due north now. Yeah, we are. We're gonna go. I'm already getting low on battery, so I probably won't be recording much more, but we're gonna go up this way, go up this trail, come down. We'll park right there. And I forget exactly, I think it's about, let's see, I think the entire loop, so 1, 2, 3, It's like 4.5 miles. And now you can really appreciate the size of the Tailless piles. Those rocks are the size of large trucks and bigger, the ones you can see distinctly. That cliff up there in the center right about now, that's where I was recording before when we were up there talking about that. That's where people were climbing. Now we're gonna go up this side. We're coming up on the southwest edge of the lake now. The boat rack docks there. There's another parking lot past this little ridge right here. But what you can see now, you can see we were walking down there before. There's your east bluff. There's your south bluff this way. That is the glacial end moraine, that hill right there. That's where the glacier came from the east to the west, stopped right there. So this is all unglaciated, all this right here where we're walking. Here's the biggest creek that flows into Devil's Lake. There's some geese. This is looking about northeast. Yeah. Comes from over here. Comes from up that way. Right through there. And there's where we're going up. One and a half miles to the picnic area. Oh yeah, so we already broke it. Southwest edge. There's that creek. So we are going to that trail. Well, the boat launch is down there too. Is this one, which we're not taking. We are taking this one.
Catch like this.
Oh, that would be excellent. Always roughly east, going up the west bluff. Look at that color banding. It's beautiful there. We are on the west bluff right now, about a third of the way up from south to north. It's obviously the east bluff behind me, but I wanted to show you guys this real quick. Picked them up along the trails on to believe them here. But this is both Baraboo Quartzite. This one's this dark, deep purple gray. Looking in this one is almost white, but it's both Baraboo Quartzite. And in this one, you can even see this reddish here. Well, what happens after a while, and especially modernly around fractures and joints, is it will get leached out. Groundwater moves through the cracks of the quartzite, picks up the hematite, thus reducing essentially the rock, making it more white. Now the hematite would have been deposited initially with the quartzite, and sometimes it redeposits it in other areas, making it dark gray, and my fingers are getting red-orange here from the hematite on this one, and this is more granular. Now, you also see them deep within the rock. There aren't any up here. There's kind of a little bit, you can see reduction here, but when you get it within the rock instead of along joints and fractures, that would have been reduction like around depositional time frame when it was still a sand being deposited in a marine or fluvial environment. Some hematite would have been leached out, making it lighter in color. But I just want to show you, that's why you see, even though technically we described the quartzite as a medium crystalline purple quartzite, it's actually can be almost, in some places it actually is white. It'll devitrify isn't the proper word, that's used for glass, but it breaks down back into its sandstone components. The Baraboo quartzite is its parent rock, its protolith was a quartz arenite, and there's some feldspathic parts, but the vast majority was quartz aranite, and kind of like the St. Peter is the Ordovician St. Peter south of us, but this stuff is Precambrian, Proterozoic. This boulder has reduction primary during deposition. See, there's purple Here's the lighter reduced bed. You see some more that may actually have been deposited that way. You may have had an iron rich influx and then an iron poor, then iron rich. But yeah, this is more pink against the purple. We are about to descend the cliff down, but there's the very north shore right there. And this spit right here, if you can see it, you know the lake's not high. Now the sand should be continuous. It's slightly underwater, so the lake is a tiny bit high. And this north building right here, bats live in there. They've tried to, have them, encourage them to come up here, but they do sit down there at night and you'll see them just leave and then they head out and hunt. Okay, we're in the northwest corner of the lake, and hopefully this will be the last video up high. We're on our way down. But what you see here is you see Tailless in the making. You see all the stages. You see the rock intact where I'm standing on, and you can see it has joints and fractures. Here's your east-west, here's your north-south. And you see the joints there as frost wedging starts. You see the joints push the rock. And the rock gets further and further away from the cliff until it can no longer hold itself. And down it goes as a huge Tailless block. So you've got initial here, which is your fractures and joints. Then you've got your phase one, I guess, which would be right there where frost wedging pulls it away from the cliff face. And your stage two, which pushes it significantly away from the stage or from the cliff face before stage three when it tumbles down. Yeah, they were cutting trees like crazy through here. I don't know.